In this video, we're going to learn how to convert some units. And what do I mean by converting units? Well, a unit could mean a lot of different things. It's usually a unit of measurement. So if we're measuring length, for example, we may be using different measuring systems. We may be measuring length in meters, in centimeters, in millimeters, if we're using the metric system, or if we are using the imperial system, it's possible that we're using inches as our units, or feet, or miles, etc. Now there are many units of length, too many to count, and too many that are worth mentioning here. The difference between the imperial system and the metric system is just history. So the metric system was mostly used for science. So it's more of a new system. Everything in the metric system is based off of the measurements of water, because water is such an important thing in science. Whereas the imperial system is a bit more old, and it was mostly invented just by common folk, mostly farmers, I'd say. So pretty much just anybody who had to measure how much land they had, or they wanted to measure the height of a house that they're building. Typically, this would be done in inches, feet, acres, yards. So it's a bit older. Now, as far as the standard goes, most countries have switched over to the metric system entirely. However, there are still a couple. I know in particular the US, United States, they still use the imperial system. But most other places use the metric system. So it's important to know both, depending on your intentions. So how do we convert units? The first thing we need to know is, what is the conversion between the two units? For example, meters to centimeters. We need to know a comparison of the two. Now, this is something that often would need to be looked up. There are just so many conversions that exist that it's hard to memorize all of them. So if you were to look this one up, you would find that 1 meter is the same length as 100 centimeters. Now, as long as you have access to some information that tells you how to convert these, the process will always be the same. So let's take our 3 meters, which is what the question started with, and just follow these same steps every time and it should work. Multiply it by a fraction. So this will require us to remember what we did in the last 4 videos on fractions. Now, the new unit that we want here, which is centimeters, we want that to be the unit that appears on the top of this fraction. So centimeters has to go here. And if we put meters down here, if you recall, it will cancel with the previous meters, because 1 meter is up here, 1 meter is down here, and this is a multiplication. So that's how we can cancel the 2 meters. That's how we get out of meters and into centimeters, which is the goal of this question. What numbers do we put in here? Well, how many centimeters is equal to how many meters? That's where we have to look up this conversion that I mentioned up here. So this is something that can be looked up. And all you have to do is copy the numbers. So next to the centimeters, I see 100. So we're going to put 100 centimeters all over 1 for the meters. So 1 meter. So how do we multiply fractions again? Well, we have to first change anything that is not a fraction into a fraction by putting it over 1. And then it's just going to be the two numerators multiplied together. And actually, first I'm going to cancel these two meters because, as we said, one is up here, one is down there, so they get canceled out. So we have 300 centimeters if we do that multiplication. 3 times 100 centimeters, all over 1 times 1, which is 1. And we don't really need to put it over 1. We can just take this as our final answer, 300 centimeters. So that means 3 meters is the same thing as 300 centimeters. Let's try another one here. 32.5 centimeters, and I want to change that into meters. So 32.5 centimeters times. If we want to cancel out centimeters this time, centimeters has to go down here so that we can then cancel the centimeters. And that means meters has to go up here. So what's the conversion again? Well, let's remember from question 1. 1 meter is the same as 100 centimeters. So 1 meter is the same as 100 centimeters. Now we can change this fraction, or turn this into a fraction by putting it over 1 and multiply. So 32.5 times 1 is 32.5. And there's meters, that's the only unit that's left, divided by 100. And we do not put centimeters because the centimeters have been canceled out. Okay, well, remember that a fraction is just the top number, the numerator, divided by the bottom number, or the denominator. So this is really just 32.5 meters divided by 100, which makes 0.325 meters. This is our final answer. Next question. So this time I have H, which stands for hours, and S, which stands for seconds. So I mentioned above that units could mean units of length, but that was only part of the story. So a unit could be a length, it could be a time, it could be a mass, it could be a lot of things. I actually would not have enough time to list all of them. It could be a force, depending on if we start studying physics or chemistry, there can be lots of these. It could be magnetism, for example. Yeah, so for now, let's just take this case by case. So whether we look this up or we just know from our own common knowledge, how many seconds are in an hour? Well, I don't have that number memorized off the top of my head, but I do know that 60 seconds is equal to 1 minute. I also know that 60 minutes is the same thing as 1 hour. Now, just for simplicity, I'm going to put S for seconds, MIN, I guess, for minutes, and so MIN here as well. In hours, typically is just abbreviated as H. So if we start with 42 hours, we have to convert this twice. Once to go from hours to minutes, and then again to go from minutes to seconds. So let's do the hours to minutes first. Hours is on, we could say the top. I'll put this as a fraction over 1. If hours is up here, that means hours has to be canceled out with 1 down here. and minutes would go here. Now, how many minutes is equal to how many hours? All you have to do is let this equation guide you. So this suggests that 60 minutes is equal to 1 hour, which we know to be true. That will cancel out our hours. And now we would get an answer that's in minutes. So we still have work to do. We have to cancel minutes with the minutes that are up here and introduce seconds. We take the equation that converts the two of them here, and we copy down the numbers. So 60 seconds is equal to 1 minute. And now this is just 3 fractions multiplied together. So 42 times 60 times 60. Let's put that into a calculator really quickly to figure out what that makes. It's a pretty big number. 151,200 seconds, all over 1 times 1 times 1, which just makes 1. Oops. So our final answer here is 151,200 seconds. This next one may require a lot of conversions. So I'll just list them off here for you. 1 kilometer happens to be the same as 1,000 meters. However, 1 meter is the same as 100 centimeters. 2.54 centimeters is the same as 1 inch. 12 inches is the same as 1 foot. And 5,280 feet is equal to 1 mile. So all of these can be looked up. You may not need to memorize all of these, but they're fairly common ones. I'd say especially these 3 are very common. As long as we know how to use them once we convert them, that's really the important part. So we start with 32 kilometers, and now we're going to have to multiply by many, many, many fractions. So I encourage you to pause the video now and see if you can get the answer, and then we can compare. All right, so I'm assuming you paused the video. If not, then we'll just work on it in real time. So 32 kilometers. We put that over 1 as per usual. Let's convert kilometers to meters. That means we have to put kilometers on the bottom of this fraction and meters on the top of the fraction. This will require the first conversion that I presented, where we put the 1 with the kilometers, the 1,000 with the meters, because that's the order we see here. 1,000 goes with the meters, 1 goes with the kilometers. Next, now that kilometers have been canceled out, we look at the next conversion. 1 meter can be the same as 100 centimeters. So if meters are on the top, I need to cancel them by putting meters down here, and centimeters goes up here. 100 goes with the centimeters, 1 goes with the meters, and then the meters are canceled. I'm just going to repeat this process 3 more times for the centimeters to inches, inches to feet, feet to miles. So let's go. Times centimeters, inches. Well, this is 2.54 centimeters for every 1 inch. as suggested by this equation. That cancels our centimeters. And then another times. This is going to be a very long calculation. 12 inches is the same as 1 foot. This cancels the inches, and this equation was used. Times 5,280 feet is the same as 1 mile. Cancels the feet. So if you look at the units, every single unit here has canceled, except for the mile at the very end. So that's how we know we converted this properly. So it's just a matter of doing all of these fractions, multiplying all the fractions together. If we multiply all of the numerators together, so 32 times 1,000 times 100 times 1 times 1 times 1, let's check to see what that makes with a calculator. So 32 times 1,000 times 100, I'm getting 3,200,000, or 3,200,000 miles. But we still have to multiply all of the denominators. So 1 times 1 times 1 times 2.54 times 12 times 5,280. If you put all that in your calculator, you should get 160,934.4, or 160,934 and 4/10, or 0.4. Now all we have to do is divide the top number, 3,200,000, divided by 160,934.4, and that will give us our miles. So 3,200,000 divided by 160,934.4. We're getting about 19.88 miles. Now, is there an easier way? Well, it turns out if you happen to know a better conversion, you don't have to do all of these steps. For example, it's commonly known, I guess some people know this, that 1.86 miles is the same as 3 kilometers. So we could have done the same question, but much faster. I just really wanted to show you that we could convert many, many, many units all in a row with this fraction system. Let's try the same question though, using this as our conversion. I'll show you just how much easier it is if we knew this ahead of time. So 32 kilometers times miles over kilometers, 3 kilometers and 1.86 miles. The kilometers will cancel. (32 times 1.86 is 59.52 miles, divided by 1 times 3 is 3. We get 19.84 miles. So it's pretty close. It's not exactly the same as what we got here. 19.88 miles, for example, would be slightly more accurate, I'd say. That's because all of these conversions that we used here, the 5 conversions, they are all exact. This is how they're defined, whereas this conversion ratio, it's just approximate. It's not actually just 1.86. It would be 1.86 something, something, something. There are probably more numbers, but it was a little bit rounded. Depending on the accuracy that you need, 19.84, this might be okay. This might be good enough. Perhaps you should only round here, 19.8, or maybe you're just looking for 20 if you round to the unit. We can cover rounding in a later episode. Next one. So this one is a bit more challenging because now we have kilometers per hour. So this involves converting more than one type of unit. So there's units of length, which is the kilometer, and a unit of time, which is the hour. Let's start that one up. So 72 kilometers, I'm going to write it like this: per hour times. Okay, so kilometers is up here. I'm going to put kilometers down here and meters up here because our goal is to convert this into meters per second. Now, if you recall from above, 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. So 1,000 goes with the meters, and 1 goes with the kilometers. And we're not done yet, so we cancel the kilometers, but we still have hours, and that needs to be converted to seconds. But that's something we practiced a while ago. How do we do that? Well, this time the hours is on the bottom of the fraction. So in order to cancel it out, we need to put hours on the top of this fraction. And I still don't know how to convert hours to seconds necessarily. We could figure it out, but it's easier to just do hours to minutes and then minutes to seconds. So 1 hour is the same as 60 minutes, and 1 minute is the same as 60 seconds. So this would cause us to cancel out the hours and cancel out the minutes. So let's see what this makes. The numerators multiplied together would be 72 times 1,000 times 1 times 1. And actually, I should put this over 1, just that we have everything as a fraction. But yes, so 72 times 1,000 times 1 times 1. So that would make 72,000. There's still the unit of meters that remains, although everything else has canceled in the numerator for units. In the denominator, I see 1 times 1 times 60 times 60 seconds. So 60 times 60 is 3,600 seconds. All we have left to do is a division. So 72,000 divided by 3,600. And I'm getting 20. 20. And well, what are the units that are remaining? Meters per second. So meters per second. And that's good because we were aiming to convert this into meters per second. So I'm glad that worked out. And that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one.